Good evening, everybody. If you'll give us just a few minutes, we'll get the meeting started. Okay.
Hi, Laura.
Hey, everybody. Well, it's 5:30, so we'll go ahead and get started with our Boerne Open Neighborhoods discussion meeting. We call it a bond meeting. I'm Laura Haining. I'm the planning director for the city of Boerne, and I've got Sarah Seha Bennett with me, and she's one of my planners that's been working directly with the proposed developers for both sites. We actually have 2 items on the agenda to discuss tonight. But let me start with, what is a bond meeting? It is our form of public outreach that's not required by the city of Boerne. This is something that the developers have requested so they can reach out to the community and get any feedback and so forth. This meeting is somewhat informal, although we try to run it orderly. This really provides an avenue for open dialogue between the developer and the citizens in an informal setting. So what we'll do is we'll give the developer we'll introduce each property being considered. The first one tonight is 116 Bess Street. We'll talk about that. And if those folks that are interested in that property want to stay on, they certainly can. It's still a public meeting. The second property we'll be discussing is 6 Old Fredericksburg Road. Everybody, I think, knows it now as Park House Community. But we'll get started with Bess Street. We'll give the developer or their representative an opportunity to kind of present what their thoughts are for the site. I know with Bess Street, it's they're trying to kick around some ideas and get a feel for what everybody feels is appropriate for that site. And they have some specific ideas that they want to see what everybody's comments are. And then on Fredericksburg Road, it's a build to rent community. Also, people may know them as horizontal apartments, lock and leave type of development where they're individual units, not like your standard apartments. The city still calls them multifamily just because it's multiple units on one lot, but they're not your typical standard of apartments in Boerne. Our average apartment, it's run around 16 units per acre. These are about 9 units per acre on 23, 26 acres, but we'll get into that detail in just a little bit. But those are both projects we'll talk about. So I'll let Sarah introduce 116 Bess, and then if the representative would like to explain kind of what they're thinking for the site, and we'll get some feedback from y'all. I will call on folks. You can either raise your hand, you can say something. I can usually tell who's talking, and then I'll call on you after the representative is done speaking, and then everybody can ask questions and they can provide direct feedback. So Sarah, you want to kind of explain 116 Bess? I cannot hear you. You're muted. There you go.
Good evening, everybody. So I have that James Griffin would be the representative present at the meeting.
I do see him.
Hi, James. So the property located at 116 Bass. Let me go back to the map and share the one with you guys.
Technology, folks, hang tight.
Exactly. Can you guys see my screen with the map?
Not yet. Give it just a second.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, so the property at 116 Bass is the one highlighted over here. It has double frontage to Highland and Bass on this side. On the east side is all commercial property. There's the oil change station. There's some other uses over here. On this side is the city park. All the other residential properties around here. From what I got the information from the other attorneys that James will have a site plan for us to discuss, but initially the proposed use that they would like to have on the site is like multiple single family dwellings in it. They're talking about 10 to 12. They're still trying to figure out exactly what's going to be a number that is acceptable based on the community input. So James, do you want to share that site plan with us?
Yes, thank you, Sarah.
You mind just introducing yourself, James?
Yes, James Griffin here on behalf of the property owner and applicant. I'm with Killen Griffin and Fairman. We handle land use zoning matters, San Antonio, Boerne, and all around. Really appreciate everybody taking the time. For those that are interested in this project, as Sarah and Laura mentioned, we are very, very early on in the project, site design and of the buildings themselves, but wanted to share what information we had and answer any questions anybody may have, and just kind of start the dialogue and get input as best we can.
Right, and to be clear for everybody, they haven't made any kind of application yet. They really are just trying to get some feedback right now. We don't have an application for zoning or site plan or plating or anything yet.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And I think we probably would like to submit soon for potential rezoning and get going. But again, this was obviously a very important step to see what everybody thinks first. So let's see. All right, still terrible at
I think at the
technology.
bottom of your screen in green is a share screen. That's what you're looking for. At least that's where mine is. There you go.
I
We can
think that's
see it.
where mine was. So I'll start here. Hoping everybody can see it.
Yes.
We are sorry. So here you have East Highland at the top, Bess Street down at the bottom. We are just west of Main Street. And here's site plan. It's probably a little tough to follow, a little confusing. I'll try to explain it as best I can, but we are a 2-acre property, little over 2 acres. What we are proposing, as Sarah mentioned, is a single family for sale project consisting of 10 to 12 homes. However, it would be built sort of like a condominium regime. So it'd be platted all as one lot, kind of all having some shared common space and open space, but each of the individual units, one would be detached. So they're all separate, and they would all be for sale. Here you can kind of see 2 options for the road. There's some really nice big trees on the site, and really major focus of the site development, site planning, is to, try to work around all those existing trees, especially, the big good ones there. So you see how the road kind of meanders through the site, but we would have access on both Bess and Highland. You see kind of the primary layout of the road here, and then that blue line is a alternate option there. I don't know if y'all can see my cursor, but
can.
okay, still 2 years into this.
I know.
Figuring out how to do it all. These are the likely building footprints here. The yellow ones I think are a little bit more certain, but you can kind of see it wouldn't be all of these, obviously, but you can kind of see generally where these homes would be placed. The other exhibit I have, these are a little bit more detailed, but still conceptual here. It'd be looking at a 3-story product, and that would be, as you see here, garage on the first floor. There'd be a guest bedroom and an office room, and I'll show you the layouts in a little bit more detail here in a second. Level 2, have living room, dining room, kitchen, laundry, all that sort of stuff. And then level 3, master bedroom, little outdoor deck, and then obviously, I guess, bathrooms. The general size that we're looking at, total on all 3 floors, is about 2,800 square feet total air conditioned space. Flipping through here, this may be too much detail at this point, but just to kind of give you a better idea, this would be the first floor, potentially, second floor, and then third floor with a large master suite and master bath and walk-in closet, and then some good outdoor space there when it's not 110 degrees outside, I guess.
Right.
I guess that's probably it for now. I'm happy to answer any questions to the extent I can, and if anybody has comments as well, I'd love to hear those. And thank y'all.
Great. Does anybody have any questions? I see Rufus's fingers pointing. Do you want to speak, Rufus?
So, James, the unit you showed, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The unit you showed, each one of those spots on your plat map would have one of these or 2 of these?
They would have one. The way they designed the garage kind of makes it look like a duplex, I suppose. But that would be, should be, I think they had looked at maybe an attached unit as well. So it should be completely detached, but
So if you could back up to the plat map and so each one of those basically yellow spots is one unit?
correct. That's correct. And they are kind of paired closely together, but not exactly connected. But yes.
Yeah, so they're not townhomes, but they're like 0 lot line.
Correct. Yes, sir.
We have a few questions on the chat as well. I don't know if you can see that, James. So Candace is asking if this is Section 8 or low-income housing.
No, it will be market rate for sale housing. We don't have the exact price point yet, but just because the things change so rapidly as far as materials and cost of construction and what things are going for. But the short answer is no, it will not be Section 8 or low income. It will be market rate housing.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I had some technical issues. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
ma'am.
And I apologize. I didn't mean to cut in. So these, how many units? This is a 2-acre tract. How many units per acre are we looking at? Or a total of up to 12 units? So that would be 6 units per acre of these 3-story buildings?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Either, yeah, we're looking at between 10 to 12 units, so it would be either 5 or 6 units per acre.
And I'm sorry, I can't see who's talking. What is your
My
name?
name's, I'm sorry, my name's Alex Rudd.
That's fine. Thanks.
Yes. And I have a couple more questions, if possible.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. As far as the impervious cover and parking, what percentage of this project is going to ultimately end up being either building, construction, or parking? And how much open space will be left available on this 2-acre tract as far as concerns with drainage and our existing water issues we're having right now with our groundwater recharge?
Yeah, great question. We don't have that figure yet as we're still kind of designing things, but looking at the site plan here, again, not all of these boxes will be buildings. Those are options, but you see on each side of the road, and we can certainly come back and provide some more detail and maybe some more color on the exhibit. But you see on each side of the road, really all around where these building footprints are, and outside of the road and the building footprints, which again aren't going to be as many as you see here. That will all be green space, open space, and pervious cover. But we can certainly drill down on that a little bit more and come back to everybody with some more of those details.
This is an information, as the base zoning right now, it's R1M. And if that's the zoning that they maintain during the process, R1M allows only for 50% of impervious coverage. So he would have to have that or less. And also based on the regulation, they need to solve their drainage inside the site, or they are not allowed to let any of the rain run off to the property surrounding it. So they would have to solve everything inside their lot.
So they're
Yeah.
still going to have to, just depending on which route they go, just so everybody understands, they'll likely have to plat and then give us all of that detail. And even if they didn't have to plat, we get that the impervious cover standards. They'll have to provide a drainage report, all of that stuff with any type of development for this site. So just know this isn't the last of it. Everybody's gonna get a chance to see it again. It's just for y'all to keep asking questions and let them answer, but just know we'll get into a lot more detail. I think they're just looking for your input as to whether or not you feel like this is reasonable for that site.
I have one last
Yeah,
comment. I
thank-
don't mean to take all your
Oh,
time.
it's fine.
I'm concerned that these are 3-story units. I'm not sure if I've been down that street, but you said it's fairly close to Main Street, and I'm just trying to visualize the area. What is going to be around this, and whose view is going to be obstructed by these closely packed, 0 lot line, 3-story structures? Is that even compatible with the general area? In my mind, this reminds me of a big block. And I'm not sure that that's something that other people are going to want to have in their backyard, obstructing their view.
Right. James, do you know what's around you, or you want us to explain? That's kind of what.
Yeah. I mean, y'all probably do a better job, but we have mostly commercial to the east side. So on the right side, looking at this map, to the left, you do have the city park up there at the top, and then a couple residential properties kind of in the bottom left there. A couple kind of quick comments, and then maybe, yeah, if we could go back to the aerial, that would help. But one of the reasons for going to 3 stories is it allows for a much smaller building footprint and less impervious cover, i.e. more green space, more open space. So needing a home that's going to be at the size that the market desires. Again, we're looking at about 2,800 square feet, and doing that in 3 stories rather than having a much bigger, larger footprint there. And I guess on a related note, and go back to your earlier question, yeah, Sarah and Laura, thank you for for explaining that a lot better than I did. But I believe we'll be under 50%, probably well under, once the site is fully designed. And the zoning piece of it, yes, we are R1M now. I believe we'd be proposing to rezone it to R4U, and we do need to get a special use permit because I guess, kind of eastern half of the site, probably quarter of the site, is within corridor overlay because of our proximity to Main Street. But again, we're still very, very early on in the process, trying to keep impervious cover as low as possible and green space, open space as high as possible, and really try to, make a compatible project here as far as the immediate and not so immediate area goes. But Sarah, are you able to pull up an aerial real quick, or I may?
Okay.
Yes, if you stop sharing, I can. There's a few other questions.
Well, Alex, I did want to add something. All on the right-hand side of that development, there are some apartments that run along Highland over there, but they're 2-story apartments. There's also commercial business, and then all along that side is commercial of some kind. They've got the oil business over there. And then on the other side, you've got the kinder park and then the residences. So that's what surrounds it. I looked on Google Earth just to make sure that I was correct, that there are some little apartments back there too.
Okay, and the address down the road, I'd probably like to take a look. It's 116 Bass Street.
Bess, BESS.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
this is
you.
the best front. This is where Broadway Bank is.
There you go.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Thank you. That's it for now. Thank you so much.
This
Linda
is-
has,
Excuse me, this is Aubrey Blaylock, 224 Bess, on the other end of Bess. Question for Planning and Development Group. I want to ensure, if this goes in, that these don't become bed and breakfast, don't get rezoned to rental units, that we control the population in and out of there. As you know, 224 is right in the middle of Bess, and Bess is like a minor thoroughfare for people cutting through going to HEB. Not only do we have a lot of traffic up and down this street, but some folks think it's a drag strip from stop sign to stop sign. So whatever we do as a planning commission to allow another 12 families in here, we've got to do something about the traffic as well.
I can answer some of that. The laws don't allow us to regulate whether or not a property is for rent or for sale, and what the home ownership type is. However, we do have and are actually currently writing some regulations for the short-term rentals, the B&Bs that we're talking about, that will probably provide some separation distances between them. I mean, it's a little bit early on, but that'll be another public hearing, so everybody pay attention for that one. That'll be coming up fairly soon. I'm actually thinking probably next month we'll have an ordinance that will talk about permitting for short-term rentals and trying to regulate them in some way. I mean, they serve a nice purpose, but too many of them eat up an entire neighborhood, which is not what we want. I understand exactly what you're talking about as far as the traffic on that street. I don't know that, I think them bringing a street from Bess to Highland will be helpful in just dividing up their traffic, but it's not going to cure everybody cutting through. I know what you're talking about. I see it as well. And people do zip through there on their way to HEB or out to Main Street. I doubt that this development would cure that. We're talking some capital improvement type project or something.
I think I'll need to go on record as of today then that I'm going to oppose this if there's no assurances that that's not going to turn into the next slum area. And certainly at that size of unit and cost to build, I wouldn't expect that to occur. But nevertheless, we don't know if it's going to turn into a B&B, what kind of people from other parts of the country might want to bring Bess in here. So I think we need to consider that. That's all I've got.
Maybe it's deed restrictions or something like that, James. Y'all might consider that. That
Yeah,
might be an option, and they're in control of that. It's not something the city enforces, but that's typically with a condominium. Well, with the condominium association, you have to have restrictions of some type. Somebody has to maintain properties and so forth.
Yeah,
Or-
yep.
This is Bob, man.
You're absolutely right, Laura. And yeah, we'd be happy to restrict against, B&B and, any sort of kind of commercial enterprise like that. And Laura brought up a good point. As a condominium type project, there will be extensive restrictions already kind of planned and in place for the development and the homeowners, regarding what they can and can't do, I suppose, from screening of trash cans, making sure you pull your trash cans in, to what you can do with your home. Yeah, probably a lot more restrictive than just saying no B&Bs. So yeah, we're happy to do that. And if there's any other items of concern, certainly let me know. We can consider those as well.
So good comments, and those are things that they can address. And so when they come forward to P&Z, they'll be prepared to speak to that. Did you receive a notification via text?
I received it just as a function of my next door neighbor, who's also on this call, advising me of this, and I'm thankful to him because I wouldn't have known otherwise.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they do request a rezoning, you'll see a yellow sign out front on both streets, actually. So when that happens, and Rufus knows how it works, and Bob, Mr. Manning and Mrs. Manning understand as well. When you see that sign go up, that's notifying you that we're having a planning and zoning meeting. We may, just depending on what comes from this meeting, do another bond meeting. It just depends on how quickly they want to move, but we do have to have public meetings on this. So if you're within 200 feet, you'll automatically get a notification. Otherwise, we put signs up so that everybody in the neighborhood sees it. So just watch for that and check with your friends there, and they'll let you know when the meetings are, and then we'll have better detail then of really what they're planning for the site.
So Laura, this is Bob Manning.
Yes, sir.
How
are you?
I'm fine. We did not get any notification either. We found out because Northern Hendricks put it on Facebook or some kind of posting that this was going to happen. So thankfully for her, we were able to help, and Rufus particularly, spread the word. I wanted to address Mr. Griffin for a minute.
Mhm.
If you wanted feedback, I want to give you some general neighborhood feedback. If you've heard the history of our neighborhood and the fights we've had over encroaching commercial development, then we're in a pitched battle to maintain a residential character to the 4 blocks that are in yellow on this site plan. And through the decades, we've lost one property at a time, and they say that's the last time it'll happen. And then they're back trying again and again. Most recently on your 2-acre tract, there was a developer trying to get permitting for not only appropriate infill, which is true here. This deserves to be appropriate infill site, but he was trying to cram dozens and dozens of apartments into this. It was ridiculous.
It was
And
like 30 apartments.
no, it was closer to 50, and we beat it at planning zoning 9-0. So we are an active neighborhood if we need to be. What we really want is a good listener, somebody trying to be a good neighbor, trying to help us protect what we've got, the quality of life, other than it being a highway to HEB. As vice chair of the Kendall County Transportation Committee, I'm suggesting that the city put some speed humps in the middle of each of the 2 blocks of Bess and of Water and one on Wanda to slow this traffic down mid-block. But we'll see what happens. Probably nothing. But I wanted to react to the 3-story notion. From where I live, just down at Water and Bess, I'm not sure 3 stories wouldn't improve our view shed and our noise experience, because it would block part of the things going on Main Street, everything from sirens and traffic to lights. So to me, I just want to see more about what the 3-story would look like. The couple other things that jumped out during your talk was our neighborhood has great concern about what happens when a rezoning is approved. We can all get our hands on the table of uses for what you're asking, R1M, but R4U, we don't know a lot about because that's not what's on the map. But we all know if planning and zoning awards you a rezoning, in spite of these meetings you're having, you can turn around and flip this property and the next buyer can do anything on the table of uses for R4U. So we know there's no legal recourse. I want you to understand our sensitivity as a residential neighborhood to needing people who really want to do good development and be good neighbors. And the blue box on your site plan, and I know Linda Hare's on this call, is Kinder Park. It's a wonderful little site where kids come. It is incredibly dangerous because there's no parking other than about 6 spots. So I would implore you to take a look at how you might be a good neighbor to them. It is real dangerous to drive up Water Street when families are loading and unloading their kids and you can't see out onto Highland. If they're parking on Highland, it becomes a very, very dangerous situation. There's inadequate parking. If there's anything you can figure out how to help, it might be a good gesture. I don't know. I wanted to share the general feedback as well as the specifics. So and is this intended to be a cottage community?
So cottages require separate lots, Bob. I think if these are all on one lot, it would be, now he's talking about an R4U. Let me explain a little bit about that. The R4U is really our most dense multifamily. They don't need that here. Maybe an R4L, which is less dense, but all of our R4s come with special use permits that tie the site plan to that zoning. And we did that. If you remember, after many years of being on council, there was always questions when multifamily came in. So now multifamily requires a special use permit. So everybody knows what's going to be built, where are the buffers, what are the heights, that sort of thing. So you will have some comfort in knowing, even if they flipped it, that SUP goes with the property, unless they come back in and ask for something else, but they'd have to go through the whole process again. So that's something new since with the UDC, and it's been a good thing. So it's a lot of detail up front.
Any expectation that this would be marketed to seniors?
James, you know?
You know, it is designed right now to kind of be more for an empty nester, I suppose. You saw the large kind of master bedroom up top. Not necessarily specific to seniors, but not really to a you know, full family, unless they're like mine, where all the kids want to hang out in our bedroom anyways. But it really, yeah, lesser bedrooms, kind of more open space. But those all of those comments, that thank you very, very much. Those were very, very helpful, and yeah, we'll definitely take a much closer look at all those, including the park comment as well. And I'll put my email and phone number on the chat. Love to visit with anybody more detail about, you know, some of those thoughts and ideas.
Great.
We
And there are
still
a
have
number
a few questions on the chat.
there are a number of ways that we can approach this that will give the neighborhood certainty about what's going to be there. It could be a PUD, planned unit development. There are a lot of ways to approach this so y'all can get comfortable. Go ahead, Sarah, sorry.
We still have a few questions here at the chat that Linda sent. So she's asking if the back balcony's patio will be facing the property or the neighbors. She's also asking about the number of parking assigned for the residents and also for visitors. She's asking about how you provide privacy between the 3-story units and the bordering neighbor.
Residential neighbor, I guess.
Yes, the neighborhood. Another question from Linda is, how do you explain the reasoning for seeing 3-story structures as a transitional development between the small 2-story apartment complex next to Broadway Bank and the single-family homes on the west? And there's also, I'm just reading all the questions, and then James, you can answer as you go. And Rick also is asking who owns the open space and if the road would be gated. He's asking about screening from Main Street business and the height of the overall units.
Let's let him answer the Linda. I'm guessing, is it Linda Hare that's typing?
Correct.
Okay, we've got 2 Lindas on. I just want to make sure.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah, let me answer. Hopefully I hit them all, remember them. If not, please let me know.
Yep.
As far as parking, all of the units will have a 2-car garage, but they'll also have driveway parking for 2 to 4 cars, and we're working on some guest parking as well. I don't know if it'll help to go back to the site plan, but it's one of those details we know it'll be provided, but we're not sure on the exact number because we're trying to still trying to lay out the site in the best way possible that creates the larger buffers, less impervious cover, and still accomplishes a good flow layout. I don't know, is my
She also asked about
screen
screening.
shared, or do I need to hit it again here?
Oh, you've got to share again.
Okay.
And then she also asked about screening from the neighbors, privacy. balcony.
Yep. Yeah. So again, still need to work out those details, but yeah, likely be a privacy fence, and trying to keep as much of the existing landscaping along the perimeter, really all through the site, but as it relates to screening along the perimeter, to help buffer that. So fence and landscaping, it likely will be gated. Again, still early on to commit to some of those finer details. Likely will be gated. The patios up on the 3rd floor, primarily in the front. So most of them are internal. Right now there is a kind of a smaller outside area on the back side as well. So those would face out a little bit more. But we can certainly get a little further along in the design, both of the site and the layout and the structures themselves, and be able to give you a better idea of what 3 stories means. It's this high, and exactly how far we're proposing to put these off the property line, and additional details on the screening and buffering and additional landscaping and all that good stuff.
Did that answer your questions, Linda? You can just nod.
There was one question about considering a 3-story. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Considering a 3-story development as a acceptable transition between the very small apartment complex next to Broadway Bank and the individual family homes on the west side. Because if 2 of these units are looked to be placed directly on my back fence. So if you're talking 2 units at 3 stories high looking into my backyard, excuse me, I am concerned about that. And not to mention just blocking any circulation that we may be getting from that direction. in the yard.
Yeah, good point, good question. And I knew I was gonna miss one or two, so sorry about that. But yeah, and I see those units probably are closest to your property than to any others, so we can certainly take a much closer look at that and get back to you with some better details on what can be changed right there on our conceptual site plan, and just how far they would be or could be, and what the 3 stories may look like, or if we can modify the 3 stories. I guess what I'm getting at there is maybe we can go 2 stories right there and or push them further away. So definitely we'll take your comments and your home into much closer consideration. We'll get back to you.
Great, thank you.
If you don't mind, I would also like to echo Bob's comments about the park. We already have one neighbor that's trying to rally for the speed bumps as well. It is a very dangerous situation. There are not enough parking spaces. When there are parties there, they will park on the shoulders of Water Street where there is not enough room for one car, narrowing it down to 1 car access. And the children do occasionally get loose from their parents and run across the street. And if they park on Highland, it does block our view. So any additional overflow parking from visitors to this complex would only make that situation worse, which is why I asked about the visitor parking.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, we'll make sure to include as much visitor parking as possible and as needed. And I don't know, maybe there's a question back to y'all, whether this would be a good or a bad thing if we can find space to maybe before our entrance on the property for a few public parking spaces for folks to use the park, or does that just bring more people to the park and they're still parking on the street? I guess, yeah, it's more of a question than an answer, I suppose.
We also have got trees up there that we want to take into consideration as well. So we'll have to look at it more carefully and see if there's even space.
Yeah, this is Bob again. I think the answer, I brought it up earlier just because it's an issue that needs attention. But knowing that Laura's on this call, maybe she got the message as well. The city could solve this problem and probably should solve the problem. It's a delightful park, very popular. There ought to be 10 of them around town, but they need safe parking, and this one does not have it.
Hear you loud and clear, Bob.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. This is Alex again, and thank you. This seems to me, although I certainly would have to see it close up, it looks like they're going to be very close, and it looks like a very relatively small amount of space. What will the trash management be as far as, will they have a dumpster? Will there be enough room for a garbage truck to go into the gated community and pick up individual canisters, or will there be a bulk collection? This to me, it looks more like a condominium type setup, but do we have any word on that as far as how will the garbage pickup be managed for this community?
Good question. Not yet, but I will find that answer out and get back to y'all.
Thank you.
Sarah, I know you said some folks were typing in. Let's get through a few of those, and then Rufus, I see y'all your wife wants to speak, but let's get through a couple of questions. We got some folks that have been waiting, then we'll get right back to you.
Rick was asking about the ownership of the open space and the gated road. So that, I think we can talk about it. When it's a development like this, they need to create like an HOA, and the condominium will be responsible for maintaining that open space and the road and all that infrastructure for all the units.
Great, thank you, Sarah.
Linda is asking, so James, if you guys are able to go to the chat, you'll see that James left his email or contact information. If you by any chance don't know how to get to it or can't get to it, you can call us here at the office and I'll give you the information as well. Josh is congratulating the congratulating the developer for coming, asking the community prior to finalizing the plans. And Steve is saying that I reminded of a terrible appearance of a La Quinta on north end of Boerne next to a single family in a neighborhood. I'm not that familiar, maybe.
It's a commercial zoning off of I-10 that has a La Quinta hotel that backs up to Woods of, not Woods of Frederick Creek. The
Just
little
south of
subdivision.
Jones.
Pardon?
South of Jones.
Yes, south of Johns Road. That's what he's talking about, and it hovers over the neighboring residential properties.
I know that one very well too. I guess, yeah, every time we drive by it, it grabs my attention. We will not do that.
Yeah, it's a pretty massive building that overlooks their backyards. But it was a highway commercial zoning. It was unfortunate. That's when we came up with buffers of zonings between residential and commercial, and it was because of the La Quinta situation.
It
Wasn't
looks like
it?
about 5 feet from the backyard of those.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's ugly. Anybody else, Sarah? Otherwise, I
No,
want to let, is it Mrs. Stevens? Mrs. Rufus? You got to unmute yourself.
I like the plan in general, just because it's much better than the 45-unit apartment that was presented before, and it also is kind of like a cottage community, but 3 stories, we are familiar with the trees. We walk the property. Ms. Ayers was very concerned about the trees and wanted everything to be kept, even that small house, which was taken down. But there's some massive trees there, and I just don't see how that many 3-story buildings can, just seems like the footprint of the trees would be a problem. I mean, 2 stories, but 3 stories I think is a bit much. And through my own kind of private market survey, there are a lot of people that want to live in this area and be close to things that are walkable. We've even had Bob and Linda's neighbor across the street. That's why she bought here, is because she could walk to HEB and get places. So a lot of people would rather sell their big houses and move to something that's more reasonable and not have to drive everywhere. So, I like it that it's more a cottage, but I just see some problems with the 3 stories.
I would just pipe in here and say, just jump in and say, if there's any way that, especially where it backs up to the neighborhood, if that, the other sides could maybe be 3 stories, but not that side. That's a thought.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, we will look at that very closely and see what we can do to change it, to modify it.
But Sarah and I talked about this earlier too. The overlay district actually limits heights. So we'll talk with the developer about that and see if there's a way to accommodate that, or because that'd have to be done with a variance of some kind, I think. But we've got to look and see what's appropriate for this. And again, I think we can, once James has talked to his client, maybe look at it in more detail, and then have some specific variances that address everything with a site plan. We were really trying to figure out the best way to do that so that everybody will know what they're going to get when they're done.
That would be great. Actually, had a few questions for you, particularly regarding the overlay, and I think it allows for a little extra height if you push back the setbacks a little further, but we weren't sure how that was measured. It talks about facing the corridor, which is Main Street, and we're not right there on Main Street, but yes, we'll kind of take all this into consideration and replan and redesign, and then come talk to y'all, Laura and Sarah, make sure we're doing it right. I'm glad you brought that up about the R4U versus L. Yeah, we weren't 100% sure on that one.
You don't need a U over there.
Okay,
U is
perfect.
18 units or more Great.
I had just learned y'all's code a couple years ago, and then you changed it all. Now I'm having to start over. I definitely need some help here.
Yes, Rufus.
So just one feedback to you, Laura and Sarah, that as Bob mentioned, we sort of stumbled into knowing about this meeting. So I think there needs to be some way that we, other than Facebook or just happening to stumble across it, if we're really interested in community neighborhood involvement, we really got to figure out a way to get a better communication going.
So we should have, what you should have gotten, and I'll check tomorrow and see why this.
I do have the signs. So we do have, and I know they're not huge, and I put on both both frontages. It's a yellow sign with just has like the bond and talks about the property being developed, and
So
it kind of directs towards the city's website.
yeah, we do put out bond signs. They're not the bright yellow ones, but they're anyway, we put out signs, but we also send out text messages, but you've got to be signed up for those. We also put it on Nextdoor, and then we've got it on our bond website, but you have to sign up for those notifications. So if you're not, please do, because all of the bonds, if you're signed up for calendar notifications, you'll
City
get council
calendar.
meetings, P&Z meetings, but you'll be in the know. But so we tried to text everybody in the area too. So I'm surprised you didn't get some notification.
One consideration, the city's electrical department sent us emails, excuse me, hard copies to our mailboxes of a pending amount of distribution or electrical pole work in the neighborhood. So that was a great idea. I love seeing that in the mailbox.
So
And-
we will, when we have an official application, so the bond meeting's a little more casual. We don't send out letters because it's
Okay.
often kind of a quick turnaround. But when we have an application and they go to P&Z for zoning, we send out actual letters to everybody within 200 feet. If you're anywhere in there, but we also put out that bright yellow sign too. That's why I was saying, if you don't get a letter, watch for the sign, because then you just holler at us and we'll send you whatever you need.
I do want to thank you for this meeting. It was insightful.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Anybody else have some questions before we let James go?
Kristen, actually, she asked for the link to sign up for the notification. I'll look that up and I'll post on the chat in just a little bit, if you don't mind.
I have one last question about the trees.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I've heard that there are heritage trees, very large trees in the area.
Mhm.
I know for a fact, one of the Boerne professionals, takes care of trees. I believe he's an arborist. Will he be involved in making sure that these trees are not harmed or killed during the construction process? Because even if they want to save them, if they, for example, put too much pressure on the roots or put heavy equipment over their root areas, those trees could be gone. So will somebody be watching that?
I think Rufus is staring at me at his camera right now. But anyway, we actually have a planner on staff, and Rufus knows him. Ryan Bass.
Yeah.
Pardon? Yeah. Ryan Bass is our planner on staff that actually oversees all the tree regulations and so forth. And he's very knowledgeable, not an arborist yet. But he is our guy that's actually written the section of the UDC that talks about tree preservation. He made it much more stringent. And he keeps an eye on the sites. We also have protections for the trees and so forth. But I have a feeling knowing the neighbors in that area, I have a feeling they'll tell us if any protections get knocked down. But we do watch it and inspect it. And I do have a planner that oversees it.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Well, thank you all very much. If you want to hang on for the next meeting for 6 Old Fredericksburg Road, you're more than welcome to, or you can sign off now. Otherwise, we'll move on to our next topic for the evening.
Yep. thank you, everybody, for your time and for the great comments, and we'll be back in touch.
Thank you, James.
I just
Thank you.
added to the chat, everybody, the link to sign up for the notification, and you can pick whatever you want. So
Thank you. These are called bond meetings, B.O.N.D. We'll let everybody who wants to get off, and then we'll get started on 6 Old Fredericksburg. Okay, the next project we're going to look at tonight is 6 Old Fredericksburg Road. It's Provident Realty Advisors are the developers for the site. I think everybody knows it as Park House Community. It's a build to rent community, also known as horizontal apartments, lock and leave type of development. It's not your typical multifamily. We kind of mentioned that earlier. Typical density for multifamily development, one, they're stacked one on each other, can be 4 stories in height. And you're around Boerne, they run about 16 units per acre on average. There's some that are smaller, some that are a little more dense. This particular project is, what did you say, Sarah, 23, 26 acres?
23.
23 acres, and they're proposing 223 units. That's about 9 units per acre. They are just beginning. They've actually had several conversations with a planning and zoning subcommittee to kind of try to work out any kinks. They've talked to the council member of the district a couple of times, just seeing, making sure everybody understands the project. So the next step in the project is this bond meeting. Again, I mentioned they've asked for it. It's not a requirement by the city, but they did ask for this meeting so they could hear your comments, answer any questions. It's been a lot of information thrown around out there, some factual, some not so factual. So we'll allow the developer to talk about the development, and then we'll open it up for questions. Who wants to do the talking tonight?
Great, thank you, Laura. Hello, everyone. Hello, residents of Boerne. I'm Garrett L. Conan with Provident, and here with me, I also have Thomas Hill and Doug Backus, and we're excited to present the Park House Boerne project to you all. And we thank you for being here and taking the time out of your schedules to hear about the project, ask questions, and get some more feedback from the community around here. So as Laura alluded to, the site is 23 acres along Cascade Caverns in Old Fredericksburg, and we are proposing 223 units. And Laura, can we take the screen? We'd like to present kind of an overall picture of. Here we go.
Go ahead.
You bet. It's all yours.
Awesome.
While he's pulling that up, I didn't finish my thoughts earlier. This is the very beginning of the process. They actually will need to annex the property, bring it into the city in order to get city utilities, and then they would zone the property. And this is one of those that would be considered multifamily, even though it's a little different than typical, but it does require a special use permit. So we talked earlier about the special use permit allows Planning and Zoning Commission and Council to attach a site plan with conditions, if they so choose, to the site, so that there is certainty in what it will be built. So go ahead, sir.
Great, yes, appreciate that. So we just want to give everyone an overview of, Provident, who we are, who's, coming in and presenting this project to y'all, as well as the project itself and the product that we've developed called Park House. And as Laura alluded to, it is a build for rent project. So we're based here in Dallas, Texas, and we've been in Texas for over 40 years. And our founder, Leon Backus, is very familiar and with Old Texas, and we've built throughout the state here as well as additional states. And so Park House is a built for rent community, and we like to think of it as, like Laura said, a horizontal apartment building, and it has plenty of amenities such as fitness center, swimming pool, pickleball, dog park, as well as lots of green open space. As you'll see in our site plan, we really pride ourselves on preserving that. So who Provident? We develop everything except for office buildings. So on the right here, you can see industrial, multifamily, master plan community lots, self-storage, and we also own some hotels. The bottom left, you can see kind of the geography that we work within. In terms of the multifamily development team, we have a great team here with over 75 years development experience. We have completed over 14,000 units and have completed or a pipeline of over 2,100 park house units, majority in Texas. So, you know, there's lots of kind of, you know, the trend of build for rent is getting very popular, and we have our own unique spin on it, and we're excited to present that to you. We believe it's very elegant, sophisticated, and really well received within the communities that we've been working in. So what it is, you know, detached homes that provide, you know, convenience to single family without the hassle of home ownership. There's professional on-site management as well as maintenance, and tons of green open space. So you can see in this photo here, each unit or the majority of the units have private patios, and therefore this is a little community center in the middle of what we call our pod. Lots of green open space. So who lives in these communities? Well, you have double income millennial couples, retirees, families, and young professionals. This is really caters to their lifestyle, and is definitely a lifestyle choice. And they really receive it well. So on the right here is an example of what a site plan kind of looks like. You know, large, you know, 120 to 300 units, lots of parking, you know, 1.75 parking spaces per home. On this site in Boerne, we have 2 per home. Like I said, individual private yards, direct access garages. So that's, you know, easy accessibility into your unit. And then the exterior elevations, we take a lot of pride in that. And with that, what we have done is we've brought the garages off the main thoroughfare and into what we call motor courts. So therefore, you can go into the motor court and then go into your garage. And so when you're walking around the community, that you don't, you know, you see great architecture instead of, you know, cars in driveways and garages. So we think it's a really great way to experience a project like this. So as I mentioned, it's all based around what we call a pod. So a pod is a, you know, grouping of units centered around a community, you know, park-like green open space. So here you can see that with the parking on either side and the garages. And then we also have what we like to do is a linear green. So that's a nice open space, a nice trail for walking with your dog or pet or just by yourself, yeah. Here's some exterior renderings with the pickleball, pool, and fitness, as well as the leasing community in the top left. You see the linear green in the top right, the open courtyard with the private areas you have, and in the bottom as well, you can see the exterior elevations and the buildings and what kind they look like. And then we shape that to, you know, the materiality of the community. Here are some interiors. So, you know, very high quality, luxurious finishes, all throughout, you know, market rate units. The mix of a community is usually around a third, 1s, 2s, and 3s. So a mixture of all of those different types. Direct access garages, so very convenient for families as well as any individual renting. And yeah, here's kind of where we're working in, and these are the projects underway that we've worked with the cities to bring this to their community, and we're very excited about it. So here's the team, lots of experience, and excited to get this underway. And we also have our own construction team, so we work hand in hand with them. So we, you know, really control quality and finish and make sure that everything is done to, you know, the highest standards. They're very active. NMHC is a national multifamily housing commission. So our construction team is ranked number 19 in terms of how many units they have under construction for 2022. So yeah, with that, that's kind of an overview of Provident Park House. And then we'd also just like to share kind of a quick little video, because we think visuals really help show what the community is about, and how it's perceived and how it looks. Make sure it's in HD. There we go. So here we're getting the inside of the pod. You have that community open space as well as the private fenced off. So if you have a pet, you can now allow them to really enjoy that outdoor space. Lots of our residents, with work from home, they're excited about this, to be close to their dog and be able to walk around, as well as have a lot more space to work in versus a traditional multifamily product. So here's that main thoroughfare with parallel parks, and you have the elevations. This was another site where we added this on top of the detention pond. Once again, on that main thoroughfare, it's just all kind of the building, and that's the motor course to the left there, where you have the garages. And then the entrance, which is where we have parking for prospective visitors, guests, and prospective residents. And then here are the amenities, pool, clubhouse, pickleball, really high finishes all throughout the community. And there's some more. And I would like to say, we've, in kind of getting familiar with the neighborhood, we really pride ourselves on this type of thing, where early active engagement with the community. And with that, we've really been collaborative with the Geneva School of Boerne, and working with them to really, coordinate best practices with this community that is adjacent to the school. So we've been working hand in hand with them. Several members of the board from that school are on this call. Thank you so much for joining. And they can answer questions. Please ask away, and we look forward to hearing more about your questions. So to get into the site that we're dealing with here in Boerne, this is our site plan. So you have Cascade Taverns at the top, then you have Old Fredericksburg over here. And so with the site, as many people know, it has some great existing character with lots of trees, namely heritage trees. So when we first initially planned this project, we really wanted a site plan around these clusters of trees to really preserve the existing character. Also with the existing site, it has some unique drainage characteristics. And so with that, you can see these light blue designations, which are detention ponds. So we've really factored in all of the existing flows of the site and really wanted to capture what's really there to mimic what it's existing at its developed state. And then in the middle, you have that amenity center, and really unique site where we're really excited about the character of the trees to incorporate that into the site plan. And with that, yeah, we'd love to open it up and hear everyone's questions and comments and feedback. Thank you very much for allowing us to present to you all.
Great, thank you so much. I did, Lance, I see your hand up. I did kind of want to, so I'll get back to you in just a minute. I did want to kind of open it up with Geneva, since you've had quite a bit of conversations with them. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this?
Laura, this is Jim Guy. I'd like to say a few things, and maybe some others on the call would like to chime in as well. But first off, thank you for the Provident folks for the presentation, and Laura and Sarah for hosting these community feedback sessions. Really, I guess is what they are. But so from a perspective of who I am, I'm on the school board at Geneva. I'm on the master planning committee also at Geneva as well, and my kids do go to school there. And so some of the comments leading into this is that Provident Realty has been vetted by our administration before this process, has also been vetted by the Master Planning Committee and our board as well. So there was thought put into those considerations before we got to this point. And with that, the Geneva School has determined that they're a capable developer with a track history of delivering a Class A product like this, that they would be a good neighbor on the east, what would be the eastern edge of the school campus, from a perspective of long-term maintenance and being sensitive to neighbor concerns. The Geneva School also feels like the Park House development plan would work for this area. And so we support this project with those considerations in mind. So I'll turn it over to anybody else who wants that in.
Are there any other board members that like to speak? Otherwise, I'm going to pass it off to Lance. Okay, Lance, you have some questions?
Wait, Laura, I believe Robert raised his hand.
Robert, sorry, I don't have my full screen on. Go ahead, Robert.
Go ahead, Robert.
Sorry, Lance,
Yeah.
hold on.
Okay, Laura, I'm not currently on the board, but I have been on the board. And I was directly influential in the purchase of our original property. And I currently serve on the master plan community. And I concur with everything the Jim guy said. We've looked at this thoroughly and we believe it'd be a great neighbor. Love the project, think the community is going to accept it well and think that they would make fantastic neighbors. So for all those reasons, I'm in complete favor. And quite frankly, whatever the board and the committee that I serve on comes to the conclusion of, I know that they've done a really great job and looked at this closely. We didn't do this willy-nilly. Thank you.
And Laura, this is David Corbin. I'm the head of school at Geneva School of Boerne, and we're made up of a great community of people who have a variety of different opinions. But one thing that I just want to make clear is that when you hear Jim Guy and Robert speak for our board, they're speaking for our institution. Our governance structure is one where we're led by a board. So we're very careful to think through things and make sure that they're in both the short and long-term benefit of ourselves as an institution and those around us. So we understand that there are always different opinions, but I want you to know that when it's a board member or the administration speaking, we are speaking for Geneva. We are representative of the institution. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you so much.
And I'd like
Anybody
to add
else?
some other, Laura.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, all members of Geneva School. Also, just kind of stepping back a little bit, this site is currently in Boerne's ETJ. And
Right.
so with that, there is, flexibility in development. And so, there's many things that could have been proposed here. And, we think it's very key and important that adjacent to a school, something that is going to respect the school, be a good neighbor, and all the other things that the board member just mentioned that is developed here. And so I did just want to throw that out there that it is in the ETJ and there are additional ETJ developments as neighbors here, and Laura might be able to go into, unfortunately, what might be proposed at some others. But we really think that this is a very suitable development for this site.
Right. So what he's talking about really in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of Boerne, which is a mile outside of our city limits, it's county property, right? And the city cannot regulate any uses. Now we have oversight of platting, but that doesn't guarantee any uses on the site. So if they are able to annex and zone the property, then the city does have some control over we have all the control over what gets built there. But right now there is no oversight. So in the ETJ, I think right across the street from this is an automotive shop being built. That's not in the city limits. It's in the ETJ, but it's been platted. They can do it. Everybody has property rights and they can do what they want on their property. But right now this is in the ETJ. So it's a benefit to bring it into the city because we have a little bit better control. We have a lot better control over what goes there. But I think that's what he's alluding to is right now it's in the ETJ. Anything could go there that may not be as complimentary to Geneva or South Glen for that matter on the north side. Okay, so I promised Lance now a couple times I'd let him speak. So Lance, you want to go ahead?
Sure. I'm just curious, do you see 60 participants on this call, Laura?
Sarah, can you tell how many?
Right now we have 60. During the previous discussion, we had up to 66. Yes, I count them, Kyle.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to Make a note of that. Also, I'm curious about why this is classified as multifamily. It doesn't look like, it only looks like a few of the houses in these clusters share common walls. They don't even look like duplexes.
Right, so
It looks like 9 homes per acre to me.
anything that is multiple units on one lot is considered multifamily. We don't have a specific, matter of fact, I'm trying to write something right now that kind of splits this type of development into a separate category. Because, you know, we've already looked at another project like this just fairly recently, also had to call it multifamily. And it's anything with multiple units on a lot by our standards is considered multifamily regardless of the density.
So that designation, that classification allows it to be called, considered low density, which just boggles my mind.
Well, I mean, it's all perspective, right? What is low density? High density multifamily is more than 18 units per acre by classic definition.
Yeah, I mean, across the street, you have 5 homes per acre at South Glen, and this just looks more even, you know, just even busier. But anyway.
Well, it is, right. This is closer to 9, almost 10 units per acre.
I see also in the left margin, I saw earlier a little box check that said creek. Is that the city's indication that of you know, water activity?
Oh no, I'm not aware of any creek over there. Sarah, did you have a map that showed a creek?
Earlier in the left-hand margin, that column had all these check boxes under 6 Old Fred and one of them checked creek.
So that's just the legend, and it probably lists everything that we could click, turn on and off on the map.
Oh, okay.
And creek is one of those things. City limits is one of those things. Property boundaries is one of those things. It's just the legend.
It doesn't have anything there.
Oh, Laura, could you explain a little further these zoning classifications, HOL and R4L?
Sure. So HOL is just a holding zoning that when they're annexing and they haven't been zoned yet, they get an HOL. I'm sorry, when they're annexed, yeah, and they haven't got their zoning yet, they just get a holding zoning, which means it's really kind of acts like our old ag zoning. There isn't much that can be done in a holding zoning. They can continue doing what they're doing on the site. I can hear somebody talking.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's all right. The R4L is multifamily, 18 units or less, Sarah, for the R4L.
It needs a special use permit, but yes, 18 units or less.
So 18 units or less, it's multifamily, multiple units on a lot. And all the multifamily zonings do require the special use permit. So there will be a R4L SUP on this site.
Does the SUP allow variances?
It does. It can have conditions of approval, and it can also approve variances
and
without having to go through further steps. And the reason the reason we kind of order things like we do, so you haven't seen anything go to council yet for the annexation. We try to time things so that we have the zoning first, and then the annexation and the zoning requests go together to council so that they know what they're annexing in. That was one of the requests that council asked for when we wrote the UDC, is they wanted to see it as a whole package because they were annexing properties and not knowing what was planned for it. This way, when it goes to council, they'll act on the annexation first, then they'll have a zoning and a special use permit, and they can act on it all at one meeting. That way they know what they're getting when they're bringing in a property. So that it's a little complicated, but that's how we do it.
You were saying earlier, Laura, prior to annexation, you have some limitations on, you know, how much you can constrain these developers. But at the end of the day, they all need your water, of course, to make this happen.
Not if they're not in the city. They'd have to be on a well.
Who's going to be?
Or get water from somewhere else. I mean, that is a possibility with Lily Ranch and so forth to the south. But right now we're the water provider. We would be the closest water provider for this area. So
Right.
they want water, they have to come. To
Yeah,
get to the
it wouldn't happen without, yeah, Boerne water. Anyway,
Right.
what was I gonna say?
Sorry.
So when this is in the ETJ prior to annexation, do some of these UDC protections still apply, like that 20-acre requirement where you have to do? Was it? I'm trying to remember how it went. There was some kind of, you had to do some kind of subsurface. You had to do geological.
Well, in plating, so plating this is our jurisdiction for plating, and we ask for environmental study. So whether it's in the ETJ or the city limits, an environmental study is part of that. So we look for caves, karsts, water features, burial grounds, that type of thing for every property now.
And that's a city employee that does that. That's not a third party.
No, sir, it's Ryan Bass, unless it's too complicated for him, and then we would ask for a consultant to do it. But
Yeah,
so
he
far, we
doesn't-
haven't run into.
Laura,
He doesn't do
Yes.
the study, he does the review.
Oh, right.
Go ahead,
Yes,
Ryan.
no, a consultant does the study. Do I hear Ryan in there?
yeah,
Oh,
for
good. So
anything
this
about
is
greater-
Ryan Bass. He's the planner that actually oversees this part of it. So I'll let him explain it.
yeah,
ahead,
so
Ryan.
for any project greater than 10 acres, there needs to be a full geologic assessment performed by a registered professional geologist. That's submitted. We review that. Certainly check credentials, looking for any cave or karst feature, so that if and when identified, the site plan takes that in consideration. It's either fully protected, site is altered, looking to do what we can to protect any recharge feature identified. In addition to that, there's anything over 10 acres needs a habitat assessment, looking for any habitat for Fish and Wildlife Service protected or for threatened or endangered species. So really around here, kind of looking at on a site like this, it'd be golden cheek habitat, which this doesn't fit the bill for golden cheek habitat, but for that's performed by someone who is registered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as a professional biologist that can perform that type of habitat assessment for us. That's in addition to the Inventory of Natural Features memo, which is a second hydrologic and topographic feature assessment that's done typically by the engineering firm, and that's someone who been making a big push recently, who's a qualified individual that can make that type of assessment for us. And that's in addition to the tree survey and tree preservation plan that's submitted with that package as well.
So Laura, so the land use map or the zoning map just considers this a run-of-the-mill piece of agricultural property?
Currently, yes.
And so the watershed and the edge of the Edwards Aquifer contributing zone are not recognized.
Ryan, you'll have to jump in here.
It's probably more taken into consideration on the drainage study component of that. And this area is within what is mapped as the exposed Lower Glenrose Formation. So this is what qualifies this parcel to be included, to have a full geologic assessment conducted on the tract.
And we're talking about what, 80% impervious cover here?
It
No,
looks,
sir, that's it's closer to, I believe, 60. 47.
How many?
The max is 85%, and we're well under that at 47%.
47%.
47?
Based on
Impervious
the,
cover.
yes,
Am I
based on
looking
the
at-
site plan they're presenting, they're 47%
looking-
of impervious cover.
Am I looking at the same map? 47%?
Mhm.
Okay, I'll finish. I'll let somebody else talk. Thank you, Laura.
You bet. I do see Frank Valadez hand up.
Laura, can I address? There's been a few questions regarding parking. Maybe that's others' questions. I mean,
Oh,
traffic.
sure, of course. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries at all. Yes, so I just wanted to address those concerns because we definitely understand, and we've heard from the community that traffic, is an issue in this area. And so we haven't done a full traffic study yet, but we're going to do that as part of this process. As Laura mentioned, we're still early on. But I did want to mention this is no indication of the exact connections at the Geneva School Boerne, but they do have plans to alleviate some of the school traffic flow and the peak flow that heads up, I can't scroll up, but heads on Cascade Tavern. And they will have full control over how to mitigate that situation. So if anyone has more questions, I will let a board member there speak more intelligently to that. But that is going to alleviate some, and I do believe that it is currently under construction. And this project of ours, the Park House, will be completed, definitely way after the completion of that.
I do know that they do plan a secondary access that punches out to 10 entrance and exit over there, and have plans for some future development of the site. And we'll work with them on that. I think at some point we're going to have to plat their development as well. So that secondary access, I think, will be very helpful. I think everybody's aware it's not so much the residences in this area that are causing the traffic problems as much as it is schools in general. We've got the schools closer to I-10 and then Geneva out here too. So it's trying to work with developers to not make the problem worse. This developer has provided an initial traffic study that is going to trigger a level 1, I believe it is, or a level 2 traffic study that'll be a lot more detailed. So I'm sure we'll be getting that soon as well. I do have a map, and it's just kind of to give everybody a reference as to what's going on. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Probably should ask Sarah to pull it up. She's better at this than me. Hold on one second. And it just kind of shows in general what's going on in the area. Hold on, Sarah.
I'll look for it as well. Let's see who gets it first.
Okay, I actually got it up. Now let's see if I can share my screen. And voila. Can you see the map?
Nope.
Nothing yet.
Mm.
Oh, that's because I have to share it. There we go. Now can you see my map?
Yes, no, it's up.
Okay, good. Thank you. So this is just a description of what's going on to the south and why I think that this area is going to see a lot more attention. I don't think it's just going to be this piece of property. I think it's going to be everything kind of around South Glen, which I know, Lance has got a lot of questions out there. Everybody's concerned about any further cave systems and the flow of water and so forth in this area. So those are going to be addressed. I think Brian gave a good description of what we look at now. And a lot of that has come from development that we knew was coming out in this area. Further to the east, we do anticipate we probably will run into some caves and so forth. So I think we've got to start watching for that. And we now have regulations in place to do so. So this developer will have to abide like everybody else from now on in looking for those things. But what this map shows you really is we've got Lily Ranch coming in the future with 500 homes, and then Lemon Creek is the development that's going to have the big new HEB down there, 800 apartments, a hotel, office space, 850,000 square feet of commercial space. So this development and the connection to I-10 from the Lemon Creek development will be at a light down there that will get people on and off of I-10 fairly quickly. I would anticipate what their traffic numbers are going to show is that people would rather go south to get into San Antonio perhaps than come out Cascade Caverns, depending on maybe the time of the year during school. I think it'd probably be easier, quicker to go south, but it's yet to be seen. I think their traffic numbers will probably show some of that effect, but I don't know who is aware of the development going on to the south. There have been discussions about the Dunnenberg property, which is this property right here, is also for sale if it hasn't been purchased already. So I anticipate some type of probably residential development will go here as well. They do have the option to use Canyon Lake water, which is a new water provider area in the area. And, you know, everybody knows that Saws has crossed the boundary as well. That's a whole, there's a scientific explanation about how the water molecules don't mix, but I'm not the one to speak to that. But I know Saws is not interested in serving this area, but Canyon Lake is interested in serving it. So I think with this water down here, probably be at least several years out. I don't even know how close it is down there. So, but I think this is with some of the draw in the area, and why people are looking at developing up in here. So I just want to give everybody a little bit of background on. It's not to scare anybody, but it's the facts, and this is what's coming that we absolutely have no control over. Just north of Balcones Creek is Kendall County, but not in our ETJ. So the city of Boerne doesn't have any control. Of course, south of that is Bexar County, and not in even the county's control. So that's what's happening. It's creeping up from the south. We knew it was gonna come eventually. So I think that's part of the draw to this area now. That was really it.
Laura, I have a general comment.
Who are we talking to? Sorry, I don't know why.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut in. If someone else is ahead of me, I'm sorry. I'll wait. This is Alex.
Give me just a second. I was going to ask Frank Valadez, I think, had questions. Sarah, is mine not sharing now?
No, you're not sharing, but Frank
Okay,
has his hands up.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Frank.
Go ahead,
Hi,
Frank.
thank you, Laura. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, could you put up the site plan just so that, because I'm Frank Valadez, Boerne resident for 22 years. Family grew up here. I mean,
Well, let's let
my
Garrett.
son.
Garrett, you've got the site plan. Do you mind bringing it up?
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
You shortly.
Okay, thank you. I'm a local architect and land planner. Live in Boerne. I've done a lot of design projects in town, and I just wanted to call in support of this project. I want to commend the Provident Design and Development team as they presented, and Laura, you have mentioned that this being in the ETJ, they could have designed anything here. They could have been a lot more dense. It is, looking at it from my perspective, it is below or around 50% impervious cover. It's hard to see when you see all the gray rooftops, but what's between the gray rooftops is the green space that the development member had presented in his presentation initially. So when you count all of that green space and all of the detention ponds, the natural grove of trees that they maintained and kept, I'm a proponent of good design, good use of resources, which means the trees, the topography, the access to the site. I would have stepped in and said, I don't support the project if I saw something that wasn't designed in the best interest of the community. What also this project does, to have a healthy community, you have to have a choice of housing, which I think everybody knows that's on this call or on this meeting. This affordable housing and being rental gives, as they mentioned, young professionals, retirees, a place to live in single family type housing with the amenities it offers. But it allows like teachers, starting first responders, police, firemen, EMS, city workers that can afford 1, 2, 3 acres property in Boerne and build a single family house. This allows our teachers to live in the community that they teach. So I just need to step in and just give kudos to a design project like this. And I think we all could get behind this and support a project like this. The other thing that I want the attendees to understand from a design standpoint, because this is in the ETJ, it has to meet the city of Boerne's code, both state, federal, and local codes. Because it's in the ETJ and not out in the hill country, then everything needs to meet fire requirements, fire ratings of walls, materials, energy efficiency. all of that is going to be in this project. So anyway, that's what I wanted to convey to the attendees in the meeting, and again, give congratulations to a well-designed project.
Great, thank you, Frank. To be clear, when they're done, it won't be in the ETJ anymore. It'll be in the city limits. So that's where the control really comes in.
Well, also, I want to be clear. I have no relationship to this developer. They're just an outside person calling in, so I have no relationship to this project.
Thank you, Frank.
Yes, thank you, Frank. We really appreciate your support and appreciate that last part, because yes, we don't know you, but we definitely want to get to know you, because we appreciate that that support, absolutely, and the compliments to the design project. Thank you very much, Frank.
Great, thank you. I have Christie's hand is raised.
Yes, I have a question for the developer. The Park House development that you guys built in McKinney, I believe it's called Park House at Skyline, opened in November of 2021 and was sold about 6 months later in May of 22 to a company called Morgan Properties, who owns about 93,000 multifamily units. Is that the plan for this development as well? So in as few as 6 months, Provident may have nothing to do with the property, and rental rates, management, maintenance, security, all of this would be under the direction of a new owner?
Yes, thank you for that question. And so, yeah, so part of the project, and we talked about it a little bit briefly, is it is under one plat. So therefore, the new owner will have full control over the maintenance and the quality of the project, and we think that's key for controlling, you know, the look and feel of the community. And yes, you're accurate in your statements there. You know, it depends on the market conditions, whether or not we hold this long term or we sell it upon, you know, completion. So that's, you know, to be determined. But, you know, the full on-site management and maintenance it will be kept on in perpetuity. Absolutely.
Did you have any other questions, sir?
Do you have a general idea, just based on current market conditions, what the rental rate would be for the 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units?
Yeah, so the 1 bedroom units, you know, close to 700 square foot average. We have 3 different unit types there. That would be around, you know, $1,500 to, you know, $1,700. And then that goes up with the 2 beds to, you know, closer to $2,000. And then 3 beds are, you know, around $2,200 to maybe $2,400. And we have a really nice townhome product that there's a few of them here, so that might be a little bit more expensive.
Okay, yeah, I don't really see how that fills a need. If the need is for affordable housing for teachers, firefighters, things like that, those rates to me don't sound like it really fits that need. So if we're going to sell it that way, in my opinion, that's not.
Yeah, I heard Frank say that as well, and this is not, I think, anybody's idea of truly affordable, but there are no rentals in Boerne that are what I would consider affordable anymore. So, well,
this is Frank again. Now, let me qualify by affordable. Affordable that's not going to be $3,600 a month to build a new house on 1 acre tract lots. Yeah, I mean, it's affordable for a teacher's salary. Starting teachers are at $60,000 a year, and then yeah, so the 1 bedroom units can work for someone that wants to live in the community they teach. My wife's a teacher, so I know what the salaries are. She's been a teacher for 30 plus years. But anyway, I didn't mean affordable housing as you know, below market rate.
Right, affordable in regards to purchasing.
Laura, if I could chime in as well.
Yes, sir.
You know, we're all talking about one aspect of affordability, which is your monthly paycheck. But you know, what's also prohibiting a lot of people from being able to own is the down payment. So even when you factor in the down payment, and then when you factor in, not only do you have your mortgage, but you also have your insurance, and you know, and your property taxes that go onto that, and that's only rising. You know, the margin between that payment and the rent is only getting increasing. So we see this as a long-term solution for that. and it's a very high quality product that they can feel, very proud to live in.
Thank you, sir. Did that answer your questions?
Yeah, I believe it did. I just, we talked about the Lemon Creek development with 800 apartments coming online, and I think there's approximately 2,000 multifamily units that have been approved that are not yet built, and I just question the need for an additional 230, especially in this close proximity to a massive development that's coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad Rockwell, I see your hand is raised.
I just have some comments to make and some questions also. The zoning being requested gives a right to 85% impervious cover. As a matter of law in Texas, nobody has the right to any particular zoning. So this is something the city has complete discretion over. It's obviously super high density. Whether, I don't know how the numbers will work out, but that's the image they provided is extremely high density. And the question is really, given the situation out there with infrastructure, particularly roads and drainage, is this something that can actually be handled both by the city of Boerne and the surrounding, everybody who lives there? There's a drainage statute in Texas, section 11.86 of the water code that's cited in the Boerne ordinances that makes it unlawful to increase the flow of drainage water onto neighboring properties. It's a fundamental tenet of Texas law, but we've seen with the South Glen, which is a much less dense project, just at the beginning stages of South Glen in 2018, Lance Kyle saw very much increased water flow from South Glen onto his property. In 2021, the water flow became so much increased that he had to close his caverns for 6 weeks. This is in a area that, because it's Glen Rose outcrops, its recharge features for the Edwards Aquifer, according to George Vinnie. It's also full of recharge features, which under this scheme, there would be both a closure of the normal recharge features, but also addition of huge amounts of impervious cover. So you have to have a pretty fancy system to be able to catch all this and not create drainage problems for other people. And we've seen before that the city of Boerne has not done an adequate job of preventing that kind of overland drainage flow. So I have some questions for the developer. The Geneva School said this development, what's been proposed, has been very well vetted. There's very specific drawings of water quality ponds and locations and everything. Can you share with us now what calculations your engineers have done to enable you to say that the drainage ponds of the size that you've indicated are adequate to meet the drainage requirements of no additional overland flow from the site? Can you also share with us the initial traffic study that was referenced earlier by Laura? And when there's a habitat assessment or geological assessment done of recharge features and other environmental characteristics, can you allow Lance Kyle or his representative to accompany the person doing the survey? So it's not just the developer's person who's observing everything, but there's a independent view and look at this. There's also indications of a lot of trees on the site. Can you give us now whatever tree survey you've done of the site, so we can have access to all this information at the beginning, not at the last moment when something is submitted to the city council?
I'm gonna let the engineers answer most of those questions,
This is a question for the developers, yes.
right?
Brad, thank you for those comments and questions. We appreciate your concerns and would like to address them, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm Thomas Hill. I'm with the developer as well. So as for the drainage structures, we've done sizing appropriate for this community based on other developments that we have are under construction on or have completed. And that's why we have 3 detention ponds here, and they're slightly oversized because we know things shift around at the final phase. But with the amount of impervious cover that we're 47%. So everything's, and this site's actually on top of a hill. So we feel very confident in our drainage, our initial drainage studies, but you will not, until we get those fully designed, I can't, I mean, it's not fully baked. That,
So can
but
you share with it? Can you share with us what you have now that you based this design on, and this what you're presenting is something that's been vetted? Can you share with us what you based it on so far?
The site plan is pretty. I'd have to circle back up with our civil engineer to get us that information, but it'll all be submitted to the city, and
it is a
and for their-
little early on, and I see what I know where you're getting at here for the site plan. I will tell you, if this site plan were approved and it changes in some major form or fashion, they're going to have to come back and get a new approval for another site plan. So there's some flexibility in that for them to move things around to accommodate new design, but they haven't gotten into the specific engineering of the site. So I think it was one of the Geneva folks, one of the board members that said vetted. And they were talking about they vetted their portion of things, whatever agreement is between the two of them, and I don't know what it is. That's what they vetted. They didn't vet any of the engineering, specifically the site plan. I think they have some agreements that will protect Geneva in some ways, via screening or buffers or fencing or something like that. And that's what he meant by vetting. So this hasn't completely been vetted yet. They have to do that with a plat. And so if that does change, then they would, and it changes the site plan significantly, then they'll have to come back for a new approval. So you'd see that again.
I'm just asking for transparency. If there's been an initial traffic study, can that be shared?
So they do have an initial, just a worksheet that's been turned in. And I believe, guys, and I'll let you answer. You're working on, I'm not sure what level was due. Sarah probably knows. I think she got it. And so initial numbers, I think you guys can probably speak to. Do you have it in front of you?
Yes. So we have initial calculation based on assumptions of a recent traffic study that the city completed, and with our TIAs that we've completed on numerous other projects. But basically, at this unit count, it's half of the impact that we would have at a higher density of 18 units to the acre. So that's it basically averages out to half of the unit count as the maximum trips in peak hours. So 110 to 111 trips.
Right, so anything over 100 triggers the next level of TIA, which is what they're working on.
Are there any intersection fails?
I don't know. They're not required to study out that far with the worksheet. But the level one, do y'all recall how far we go with the level one study? Is it a mile? I can look real quick.
I do not remember. But we would be dedicating right away along both Old Fredericksburg and Cascade Caverns necessary for the expansion, and whatever the results are of the TIA, we would do those improvements as required. And then for the offsite flows, I mean, we have topo, we have a good idea of our product and how it works, and these ponds are sized in a way that we can accommodate, and we have the level of topo where we can make the ponds as deep as we need to accommodate the standards. For tree survey, you can see we have the tree survey based on the site plan. All the green circles are heritage and you know, saved trees. Our site is, we have really shaped this site around saving as many of those trees as possible. A few of them we're unfortunately going to lose, but most of those were in unhealthy condition. As you can see, like the pond area over here, we lose a couple, and then there's one right here. But generally, we're saving a lot, and we really tried to take that into consideration and really do our due diligence and design around saving those large clusters of trees that we could. And you had another question. What was the last one, Brad?
Whether in doing a geological assessment, whether a representative of Lance, who's directly affected by whatever happens on there, can accompany the person doing the geological assessment?
Well, I can answer that. If somebody's going to accompany, it'll be somebody from staff so that we can verify that it's being done correctly. Not a private property owner.
Is somebody going to be accompanying them that's qualified to detect endangered species and that type of thing?
I'm pretty sure, and Ryan's on here, would be willing to do that, but it hasn't been requested yet.
Well, I'm requesting it, is I guess what I'm saying. I'm requesting that a third party being allowed to accompany.
Yeah.
So because this is a very environmentally sensitive area.
Yeah, that's Ryan.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and which kind of contributes to the level of scrutiny that I look at these reports. I mean, we've had some that just didn't fit. They just weren't the quality we're looking for, and they were revised and resubmitted. I will say that
right?
As far as full geologic assessments, but I have yet to get a geologic assessment from a professional registered geologist that wasn't extremely thorough. I've been very satisfied with the reports that I've gotten in for projects that qualified since we approved in the Unified Development Code.
Well, then I want to add to that, Ryan, real quick. The reason Ryan is satisfied is he verifies, is he does go out there and he asks for permission to get on their property because it's private property, which everybody has been willing, and he's gone out there and verified. So he does do that.
Yeah, I do. I spot check. I spot check all these projects. I spot check tree surveys. I mean, and any sites that, from my experience, could house karst features and none are identified, I give them a walkthrough myself. So I can assure you that I will be putting boots on the ground on this site as well.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anything else, Brad?
That's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I've got Dan. Anything else, Garrett, y'all wanted to add to it, Thomas? Anybody? Before I go on.
Appreciate it, Ryan.
I've got Dan Denbo.
Thank you. So first on the road, Cascade Caverns and Old Fred, when you annex the property, those would not be annexed, correct? That would still be county maintenance?
No, they would be annexed.
Cascade or Old Fred too?
Yes, sir. That's state regulations now. If you take in and annex a property, the road comes with it.
Okay. So you would be responsible for widening the roads?
Well, they would be responsible for widening the roads. We would be responsible for maintaining them.
Okay.
Well, let me be clear. It's all proportional on the development, right? That's the law. Whatever. So they have to provide the right of way. And if the impact, and I'm going to guess that this one would be impactful enough that they would probably have to build the road improvements. If not, the law requires that it be proportional to the development. So if they were adding 4 houses on here, it may not trigger them actually building that section of the road. They'd have to give the right of way, but not build it. But in this case, with 223 units, I'm pretty comfortable in saying that they'd have to make improvements to Old Fred too.
Okay, yeah, because the amount of road impact that the property has versus where the property is, it'd be much greater. So it has expanding impacts towards Kendall Point and then towards up Cascade Caverns towards Geneva. So
Sure. So I think with the next phase of the traffic impact, that maybe I didn't make it clear enough, it does expand out as to what they have to look at. If it were to require a turn lane or certainly road expansion, something like that, they would be on the developer to build those things. We just haven't identified what they are clearly yet.
okay, thank you. Because there is going to need to be something done. This amount of impact or addition to these roads, the Cascade Cavern, Old Fred's already pretty bad. It's you're dodging traffic left and right, so something's going to have to be done there to come up. So, you know, I think it's ironic, and I guess this can be the cranky old neighbor speech, but it's funny that they talk about how much green space and how great it is, and only so much impervious cover. But for us that actually live in the neighborhood, we're going from a house and 23 acres with 3 steers and a gorgeous coastal field to a bunch of property surrounding the great oaks that are on the property. So it doesn't ring true that they're doing a great service or how much they're improving the neighborhood, because, from us who live in the country, they're actually destroying the country. And the point is, on the hill, the family across the road on Old Fred will be taking all that water drainage coming off that corner into their property. South Glen's already destroyed the neighborhood in terms of the amount of trash that we have to continually pick up, blowing out of the South Glen neighborhood down Cascade Caverns Road. We need a trash truck almost to keep up with all the trash blowing around. So, in my mind, and I can't do anything about it, but I just want to express, I don't think the density in this neighborhood is warranted. We all live out here because we like the larger acre tracts. We like the low density. We like living in the country, and having this added does not, I think, benefit from us. I mean, it's nice that all the people who don't live in the neighborhood, like Frank and the Geneva School board members who don't live down the road, think it's great. But for us, I don't think we need this kind of density. We don't need the density of Lily Ranch. We didn't need the density of South Glen, but we got that. There is not a lack of affordable housing going in. There's tons of apartments, and there's no reason for it to be paving over for us. But the water and the traffic are my biggest concerns. I can't fix the density, but we do need to do something about the amount of water that's going to be running off of it and the amount of traffic that's going to be coming out of it, so that us coming up Cascade Caverns from Shealy Road are not being whacked by everybody coming out of these other properties.
Right.
Thank you. My rant's over.
No, that's fine. And I do understand it's quite a change out there, what used to just all be acreage property. So I do understand. Mr. Rockwell made a statement earlier, and he was quoting the law about water flow off of the site, and he's correct. They can't increase the flow of water off of their site. So that should not be an issue. They've got engineers that engineer all of that. Certainly won't be the same. It's not going to be the acreage property anymore. But traffic should also be considered in this development. So,
and one last comment on the trees. The trees are supposed to be protected, but if you drive down Cascade Caverns Road, there was no protection of the trees on the backside of South Glen when they came in and clear cut all that property. So the tree destruction was pretty disappointing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Gentlemen, did you want to answer any of these questions? Add any comments?
Thank you for your feedback. And yes, I mean, we're taking it all into consideration, and that's why we went ahead and did the tree assessment and tree survey up front, because we knew how important that was to the community. And, I think we have done a decent job at not broad brush clear cutting this site as what happened out in South Glen. And to second what Laura said, their designs do not allow us to, put more offsite drainage flows than existing conditions. And so This one is majority native pasture land, so that's all that will be discharged off the site. But we really appreciate your feedback.
Thank you. Alex, you wanted to ask a question earlier. Are you still on?
Yes, I am. Thank you. And I'm sorry for interrupting. I just have video issues. Laura, I first of all want to thank the people who've taken consideration to some of the environmental issues. Mr. Ryan Bass, appreciate his efforts, I know, to protect what we can of Kendall County. I have several concerns. A lot of them starting off are environmental. And I'm going to go diverge just for a second. There's been very little press on the overall impact of this worsening drought on rural residents who rely on groundwater wells. The Trinity Aquifer, as many know, very complicated, very slow recharge. Very low percentage of the rain actually gets into the groundwater, and it is a very tricky aquifer to predict and monitor. One of the things that's happening outside city limits, well drillers are getting 40, 50 calls a day for wells that have collapsed and failed. There are waiting lists for water trucks, and this is probably going to get worse. In my mind, this area, the Trinity is connected to the Edwards. All of Kendall County is a recharge area for the Trinity. And this area in particular, with its numerous caves and karsts that have been documented, if we have any good areas of recharge, it is right here. And what I hate that I'm seeing, we are paving over one of the only areas where we can actually get some decent recharge. And this is just another nail in the coffin that I see. I know it's claimed to be 47% impervious cover, but that still creates issues. Number one, we're looking probably at another 300 to 400 vehicles. And there's a lot of roadway, a lot of driveway, a lot of parking space. The contaminated runoff from these vehicles, how is that going to be managed? If not monitored, managed, and diverted, it's going to go potentially straight into the groundwater. Another issue that I see is, of course, the drainage is another one, but the traffic issues, if they have to widen the roads and create a major thoroughfare, that's going to also increase the amount of impervious cover in the area, and ultimately probably promote more people to sell off and leave and help get the whole area paved over. I recall one of the other comments made, I really noticed this. He said that nobody has a right to zoning, and zoning may be the only tool we have at this point to try to preserve the valuable recharge that we're losing forever. We're never going to get it back. And once the Trinity is depleted, and with this ongoing drought, it very well may be happening. We're never going to get it back. And we could have a water catastrophe for rural residents who rely on groundwater wells. And that's not going to be good for the community overall. So the question I have for you is, in light of the enormous development taking place in this region already, we have Lemon Creek, Lily Ranch, hundreds, thousands of houses being added, nothing but pavement as far as I see. Can we use zoning as one of the last few tools that we have to control the density and control what goes here? We're taking a 23-acre farm with one house, and we're putting several hundred residents there instead. And as this continues, we're essentially setting our own house on fire. I think we're on a path to disaster with this, and that issue of the zoning and the ability to control the zoning may be something that we really need to take a look at. Do we really have to put this many units on this tract of property? I do appreciate the efforts made to make it an attractive piece of property, but my main concern is the long-term future of Kendall County and the Trinity Aquifer groundwater that we depend upon. Thank you.
You bet. So in answer to your question, of course, zoning is the tool that we use. The land use plan as part of the master plan is another tool that we use. So do we have to have this many units? No, we don't. That's part of the public process. And so the bond meeting is one of the first steps. Planning and Zoning Commission, and then council will be next. And it will be a determination whether or not this is the appropriate zoning. Now, I will tell you in the master plan, this area is described, or land use plan, the area is described as neighborhood residential, which is typically a little larger residential lot, but it does allow for pockets of denser development. So does this pocket fit here is the question that needs to be answered. So I do hear what you're saying, but yeah, zoning is one of those tools.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet. I see Denise Devers has got her hand up. Denise?
Yes, thanks, Laura. Thanks for
Yeah.
holding the meeting. Appreciate it.
Oh, sure.
I have a question for Ryan, if he's still on.
Ryan, are you still there?
Yep, still here.
He's here.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for doing the hard work. Appreciate it. So you're out in the country now. You know, we know South Glen was before UDC. So I can't even discuss that river of water that the videos I saw from last fall. It was disgusting. I mean, it literally was taking out the rural people. That won't happen with this property because you got the UDC and you're going to stand on it. I understand that. But does the UDC take care of the rural critters that live out here that are endangered? You know, golden cheek warblers don't live in oak trees. And golden cheek warblers don't show up year round. They've already left for their better ground south of us. They're only here in the spring. So how are we handling those types of things? You know, my neighbor has the Johann Schertz Cemetery, and around that cemetery is the original cabin and stuff from that founding father of Kendall County. Those old cedar growth are still there. His warblers come to my property to get a drink of water when we're in a drought like now, because I have troughs out. What are we going to do to protect that?
Yeah, good question. So part of that habitat assessment looks at what is, if any part of the track is within what would typically be determined as the home range of, let's just use golden cheek as, you know, as an example, because it's the one that most everyone's familiar with. There's a bunch of endangered species and threatened species in the hill country that are on the list that this habitat assessment takes into consideration. But you know, not everyone has steep canyons with mature ash juniper adjacent to a mixed oak savanna woodland. But if any part of this track is within what would deem to be a home range of golden cheek, again, just as an example, then we take a better look at, and I haven't had one yet. I've only had one project that we brought up to the developer, and they made some adjustments to their site plan and the platting component, and are taking into a better consideration of what they want to do with that track. But it's I'm a forester and a wildlife biologist. My background, my degree, it's something that I take into very close consideration with every habitat. It's actually really nice to get back to doing what, you know, my career path sent me down initially, is doing some of this habitat assessment work. So should a project come through that has habitat for threatened or endangered species, then it most likely would force some alterations to the site plan to take that in consideration. I mean, you're looking at federal law at that point, and so you don't. It's a federal law to damage habitat for an endangered species.
Yes, I understand that, but I also saw what happened at South Glen. So not so much.
Yeah, and you're correct. And you, as you mentioned, South Glen was under our older ordinance that had many exemptions for tree preservation, which have all been removed from our current ordinance. So it was one of the first things we did when we looked at revitalizing and revamping our tree ordinance, was removing all those exemptions and increasing the costs for mitigation for the removal of trees, which encourages developers to look at site plans and try to work around not only trees, but other, you know, natural features that are identified at the very early stages of the platting process.
The other thing I was concerned about is cumulative effect. So who's looking at the cumulative effect? You know, the South Glen, you know, I've seen the water, pictures of the water. I'm not actually driven through it because I'm not Texan enough to do it. But I've seen pictures of the water going across the roads, standing on the roads, you know, besides the rivers of water going through the private properties of other folks. The cumulative effect of a bad design across the road to this design. I mean, are we going to have any of that looked at, or is it just property by property so that we will never know the cumulative effect until somebody's property is being, what do I say, water running through their house and their pump house?
Yeah, that's question would probably be better addressed by Development Services, who handles all of our drainage studies and the.
Well, I was going to say, you're right, Denise. I mean, right now, what we look at is on an individual basis. The city, though, as a whole, Development Services Department looks at it on a greater scale. So the city as a whole is going to have to deal with some of the issues that have come up. I will tell you, you know, even in the past, there was a lot of water that came down Cascade Caverns Road. I remember before any of this was built, I have pictures of flooding when I think it was when the Starplex was being built, you know, years before South Glen and so forth, showing the water over the road. So there's been water there for a long time. And we just talked about you can't increase the flow. So, but how do we make things better? And unfortunately now it's, you know, it's on the city's back to probably make some of those improvements, which I don't know, I'm sure you're aware that we're making some improvements to Cascade Caverns closer to I-10 with some funds, some TxDOT funds. So little by little, we try to take care of it. Right now, what Ryan is responsible for is on the environmental side, and he does look at it on a case-by-case basis. So it is a bigger picture thing. I wish Jeff Carroll was on, that he could answer the question for us, but or answer it better than I can because I'm not the engineer. But I understand what you're saying. This particular project, though, is what we've got in front of us, and we can answer questions on that specifically.
Okay, so my next question is, you know, you've got two curves that are very close to this property. One is going to be on the corner of the property there, and then you've got one to what, the west of there, if I got my directions correct. Two tight curves. I mean, I've driven those curves, and
are you talking about further down Cascade Caverns?
Yeah, Cascade to Old Fred.
To the west, yes.
Yeah. And then to the other direction, you have another curve that's over by what, Geneva area. There's another curve over there. Saying these people are going to go to what school district?
Boerne ISD.
Okay, Lemon Creek's going to go to what school district?
I would assume Boerne ISD.
Okay, so everybody on this call needs to understand all of those folks from Lemon Creek and anything that happens in between Lemon Creek and this property are all going to go to those schools that are going to be directly north of here. You're going to have to take Cascade Caverns to get there, unless you get on I-10 and get back off of I-10 in a hot minute. And then you're still going to end up in the school driveway or Boerne High School.
Sure. I mean, I agree with you. I think that the schools and improvements around those schools is what needs to be addressed. So yeah, traffic is still going to be a problem based on the school locations of the schools and how many people go there. I do know that BISD looks at that and they're trying to spread them out and build some other schools.
But reality for these kids right now at this moment, they're not going to be showing up at Fair Oaks. They're full. They're going to be going north. Everybody's going north. Lemon Creek's going to be going north. Nobody's going to be going to a different direction at this moment, and probably not for many years from now, before the next school is built out, and it's still going to be, these kids are going to be going north.
Right.
So when you do the traffic impact study, I don't think it takes that into consideration because those other areas are not built out yet. That's not part of the study, right?
Right. They're not going to be studying potential developments around them.
Right.
They're going to study what their impact is on, and that's the law. They only have to study what is proportional to their development.
Correct.
So
But
you're right.
reality is all of the rest of the neighborhoods all around there, including Geneva School, are going to have Lemon Creek, Lily Ranch, probably at some point in time, some kind of traffic is going to be coming out of there. Dunnenberg, all are going to be going very close to your front door as they go to the Boerne schools, unless they're going to your school.
Right.
So as everybody's behind this from Geneva, I just wanted them to realize it's a bigger picture. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Denise. And to be fair to Geneva, they are adding another access point. So I'm happy about that because I think it will help quite a bit. Exactly what you're saying. It's those folks coming from the south, at least going to Geneva, will be able to use that entrance. So that's a good thing. But I appreciate your comments. Is there anything that you want to add to her comments?
Can I comment, Laura, again?
Hold on one second, Lance. Let me just make sure they don't have any answers.
So thank you, Denise, for your comments and feedback. We appreciate it, and your concerns. Thanks for your time here.
Great. Okay, Lance, it's all you.
Yeah, just follow up to a comment you made earlier, Laura, about you witnessing water flowing down Cascade Caverns Road years ago. I guess Boerne Middle School South was built in the late 90s or early aughts, around maybe 2000. Yes, the Cascade Caverns watershed's about 1,500 acres. It's always been a drainage area.
Mm-hmm.
But my hydrologist and our daily receipts here at the cave document what's happened in the past 5 years. My hydrologist documented the velocity and volume increases. And in the last 5 years, we've had to shut the cave, and we have records going back 50 years. We've had to shut the cave twice or 2.5 times as much due to the stormwater runoff. So the engineers definitely screwed up at South Glen. We know they get away with murder around here. Unfortunately, I know your office is probably not staffed, and the development services is probably not staffed to meet the demand around here. But I don't know what to do going forward, because these engineering reports just really are worthless. They're basically bogus. I mean, really, that's my comment. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome. I don't see anybody else. Sarah, is there anybody on the chat that
Laura
has questions?
Laura?
I see Mr. Adelstein.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm on my phone. I don't know how to hit the raise the hand.
No, that you're fine.
You're good.
Fine. You can just speak up. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having the meeting. Everybody's brought up really good points. I live in this area. We have a lot of dense development. People have talked about the roads. People talk about the schools. I don't know where these people are going to go to school. 800 people at Lemon Creek, 500 at Lily. Dunnenberg is going to be hundreds. This is going to be hundreds. I mean, at what point do we say, yeah, we're not allowed to count what's maybe going to come, but, oh, we've overbuilt and now we don't know what schools we're going to send people to. The roads are too crowded and we're just stuck in a pickle. I mean, at what point do we talk to these guys? Obviously, they're talented developers. I'm looking at this plan here. Have we ever talked to these guys about, how about coming up with a plan that's, maybe half-acre lots? I don't know what the architect from Boerne is thinking. $1,700 a month is affordable housing. I don't mean affordable Section 8, but, I have kids. Boy, $1,700 a month for an individual apartment. That's really steep. Oh my gosh, that doesn't count utilities. That doesn't count my car payment. So anyway, I'm just thinking we're also in this beautiful country. We're in the county. All this apartments that are around the city. Why can't we have the county be like the county with bigger development? That's my one question. Can these developers have they thought about a less dense plan? Number two, it was news to me. Some really astute caller before said these guys built this up in McKinney or one up there, and 6 months later they sold it. So we have Geneva vouching for these guys. I'm hoping Geneva feels as good about the next owner when maybe they don't keep it up as well, or maybe they don't have the same kind of requirements, or the third owner. And I'm frustrated because we have all this going on, and there's seemingly nothing we can do. And Laura, you said it a little bit ago that there was some deal between Geneva and these developers, but when the 3 Geneva gentlemen came on early in the call and vouched for these guys really highly, none of them mentioned the deal. So how about they come transparent and tell us what the deal was? Thank you, Laura. Appreciate the meeting.
You're welcome. By deal, I meant that they had discussions in advance to talk about how this development would impact them. I think
And then there was no land swapping or land sales between them.
I think there certainly was, because a portion of this, and guys, I think you're still on, you can probably address this better than I can, but I do believe there was some land swap to make this development more square in nature. That's a simple term. And then to give to Geneva some land that would make it a little better development. I do see.
Laura, thank you. Yeah, that's David.
Yeah,
Corbett,
thank you.
head of school. We're a 501c3 K through 12 nonprofit. We're not in the business of making profit. We're in the business of educating kids. So we care about our neighborhood. We care about Boerne. We service and try to keep our private school product at a low price. We're very civic oriented. So this is by no means an endorsement of Provident based upon profit for us. It's a vetting of what the company is, what product it's built in other parts of Texas, and whether or not it would be a good neighbor to us. So we'll let all the chips fall where they may in terms of the zoning process and the due diligence they have to go through. But we're just looking for a good neighbor, and we're trying to be a good neighbor. So I'll just end there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the clarification, because vetting to me means something different than it does to other people. So I think everybody heard something a little bit different. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, David. And then I'll answer on the 1 acre or half acre tracts. I mean, this small tract here, if you divided it into half acre tracts, it wouldn't be feasible you wouldn't be able to deliver lots to a builder that would be even remotely affordable, or they would actually just laugh you off. So, but we have looked at several versions of what we could do on this site, and this product seems to pick up the most traction with our group and also with Geneva. And I mean, we're very highly confident that this product is high quality and that it is a unique housing type that offers an alternative housing. And the rental rates are what drive this area and also drive the quality of the development. Whenever we sell, if a buyer comes in, they're going to be looking at those rental rates escalating. So that buyer, such as our previous sale, Morgan, they have 93,000 units. They're very, very well respected. And they also have their in-house management company, and they're doing a tremendous job at our McKinney development. That might not be who we sell to. The market's kind of fluctuating right now. We may, as Garrett mentioned earlier, do a long-term hold on this. But either way, it would be professionally managed, single platted lot, on-site maintenance with professional landscaping crew. But in order to maintain that level of service and the rents that would be expected from a potential future buyer, you better believe that they're going to have a high quality property management company there with strict staff there to mitigate broke down cars leaking fluids into the drainage system that was mentioned earlier. I mean, all that stuff. Will have water quality and detention ponds that treat all the water before it goes off if there was some catastrophic incident like that. But Impervious cover, yes. I mean, we provide these pocket parks, our pod concept. And with this site, we actually took extra precautions with the trees and to provide actually more than what we have in other developments. So we think that's a strong feature here. But as Laura mentioned, there's a auto mechanic shop getting developed north of the road, which I think is probably more of a risk for pollutants than we would ever be. So I hope that answers some of those questions.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Did you have anything else, sir?
That's it from us. We really appreciate everybody's time.
Well, we actually do have some chat questions. Jeremiah Jones asked about whether or not we'd just be following the chat. And I know Sarah's been chatting back and forth, and there have been some questions. Is there anything, Sarah, that we need to address?
So some of the questions were answered during the conversation at all. And
no section 8 here.
No section 8. So yes, we'll have the traffic study. That was also one of the questions.
No, I
Just
think some
another
of these for the last one.
Yeah. So Mr. Jones had a question about the special use permit and how, if the property is resold with an R4 zoning to a subsequent or lesser developer targeting higher density. And I believe Laura also explained that with the special use permit, it's a site specific. So if they're going to make changes to the site, that would make them have to go back and do the public process again and do all this part again.
Right.
Hey, ladies, I'm here. I didn't want to interrupt you, but yeah, I put that question on about 45 minutes ago when we started. It's been discussed. I'm concerned with the high density or low density horizontal multifamily. And so I understand the quality of this product we've been talking about. I have some experience in multifamily development. I also understand the developer's likely intent to sell a property. And so I was trying to clarify on the special permitting you were referencing at the beginning, Laura. If that applies, does the zoning revert back before they finish construction? But I believe it's been discussed pretty thoroughly here.
Okay, good. Is there anything else you had any questions on?
No, ma'am, Laura. I was listening in. It was just questions on the infrastructure, the traffic study, what's tied to the development, because it is an increase of multifamily versus single family homes or commercial, and just how that process works. So I think we've discussed it, and I appreciate it. I do have a concern with traffic study, but I believe you spoke to the development having some responsibility.
They will. And let me be clear about the special use permit, because this question's been asked before, and it's not super clean cut, but the special use permit does follow the property that it's assigned to. And if somebody else were to come in and buy it, that special use permit follows with the land. So if they decide to change it, they've got to come back and ask for, and I hear somebody's mic is on.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's Alex. So they'd have to come back in and change it. But let's say somebody, the special use permit was going to expire, something expires in 5 years. The P&Z can, and we keep an eye on these developments, they can come back in and say, and change the zoning. So P&Z has a right to come back in and change zoning. Council has the right, even staff can come back and say, this property, they haven't followed through on their project. We don't feel like it's appropriate zoning for a high density type of use, 18 units or more or less, true apartments. And so we feel like we should down zone this property. We still have the right to come back in and look at it from that perspective. We haven't seen that happen before. It's never happened here, but it could, and there are opportunities for us to make those changes.
And even if they get the R4L, almost all the users would require a special use permit, especially when they're related to density or anything similar to that. So if they're going to keep one big lot, they need to come for a special use permit, even if this particular layout expires. So they will always have to come back, even if this is not the exact plan they plan on building.
It's a good safety measure for everybody that's lives around it, for the developer to know what they need to be following. So
I'm good, Laura and Sarah. Thank you for circling back to that.
you bet. Am I missing anybody else? Anybody have any other questions? All right. I hear silence.
There is one guest that just asked how long the construction process would take.
Oh, well, I will tell you the annexation and zoning by itself will take at least probably 2.5, 3, probably closer to 3 months to get through that process. And then construction, gentlemen, you want to answer that question? How long does it take to build
Would be
something like this?
most likely 24 months.
So another couple of years before you see anybody living in this.
Well, no, first units would be like 14 months.
Oh, gotcha.
And
There's also a
final
question
completion.
about what is the projected date it would start. So it all depends on getting it annexed, zone, special use permit, and then they would have to go
then
through the
platting.
platting infrastructure. And after all the infrastructure is in place, that's when they will be allowed to build up. So it would be a little bit of time.
Right, so platting all by itself, it's a development plat, fairly complicated. I'm gonna take a stab at probably 6 to 8 months to get through the platting process, and then they have to build infrastructure. So it's a while before they can even begin construction. Anything else?
We really appreciate everyone's comments and feedback, and look forward to continuing this dialogue.
Great,
Thanks,
thank you
everyone, for your time.
guys so much.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it. Thank you, Laura and Sarah.
And you have Sarah's contact information, my contact information, if you all have any questions. Anybody else that was afraid to speak or thinks of something later, then just shoot us an email. We'd be glad to answer. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Have a good evening.